Want to thank Amar and the whole crew for putting on another great conference coming up right now as you're watching this live. I'm going to be talking about conquering the chaos in your cleaning business and getting really clear of where we're at and where we want to go in the future with our business. It's not only enough for clarity, or probably the most powerful things any business owner could say which is I am clear, but we also want to be able not only be clear as the business owner where we're at and where we're going into maybe this big, hairy, audacious goal or this BHAG that Jim Collins talks about, but how do we actually tie into our team all the way down to the technicians in the field cleaning to clarity of how did they win or lose throughout the day? How do they stand? A virtual scoreboard, would you? And in addition to that, how does their day-to-day operations actually contribute to the overall goal and mission, or that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal of your business? So I'm going to talk about over the next 35, 40 minutes, how do we get really clear as a business owner, create the organizational structure we know we need and probably don't have, and actually how to go in and get the folks cleaning for you out in the fields, whether they're 1099 or an actual employee, residential, commercial, porter service, or something in between, maybe just doing Airbnb cleanouts. How do we create that clarity within there? And I couldn't think of a more perfect story, especially with the audience here in the cleaning industry. We went out and we heard this story, and it was really great. It still resonates with me. So I want to kind of share this with you before we dive in and I open up the screen to the talk today. Is they went out before we actually put someone on the moon to NASA and interviewed one of the janitors that was actually cleaning the bathrooms, emptying the trash, stripping and waxing the floors. You know the deal. But they asked this gentleman, he said, "What do you do at NASA?" And without missing a beat, he said, "I help put people on the moon." And that is the kind of clarity that I want to be able to show you and how to drive in your cleaning business, that the people down on the front lines cleaning every day, interacting with your clients, generating the revenue in the field as direct labor. How do they know what they do on a daily basis each and every day contributes to the overall mission goal of the business? And how do they know at the end of each day if they've won or lost? And we could literally come in and say, hey, here's fair compensation. This is what's expected, and we're talking the same exact language. We're on the same page. That's the clarity, that's the structure, and that's what we're about to dive into today. So buckle up, and we're going to dive in right now to conquering the chaos in your cleaning business. So before we dive in, I want to make this a little interactive. In the chat, pop in there. What percentage of all businesses never break $1 million in revenue? So it looks like in the chat, I've got 90, I've got 70, I've got one at 99%. Well, believe it or not, the actual number there that is coming in is 93% of all businesses, whether it's cleaning, lawn care, window cleaning, pressure washing, any small business in the United States, only 93% of those businesses ever break $1 million in revenue. And part of the things we've alluded to before this talk are going to actually be some of the bottlenecks and hurdles of why most businesses don't get to $1 million, or even worse, they break this magical line and things structurally start to fall apart and they drive back down to a place that actually is more comfortable. There was a study done about a year ago, as well as some of the businesses that actually broke this $1 million mark and well beyond. So at the time of recording this, I believe the top 5,000 Inc. companies had to be at least $3 million in annual revenue. Well, more than half of those businesses within 2 to 3 years of making that list either went out of business or were disadvantagedly sold. What I mean by that is they had actually fallen apart because they didn't have the structure and the systems that I'm going to show you today to scale and stay profitable and not have the business basically fall apart, for less of better terms. So this is the things that we're going to be diving into today. And Marshall Goldsmith said it the best: what got you here won't get you there. So we're going to talk about some of the things that may have gotten you here and some of the things that by sheer grit and determination have gotten you here. But what are the bottlenecks, the things that we need to address inside our cleaning business to actually go out and succeed? So if you watched our talk within the last year or two at the summit here, we had talked about the 5 stages of business. So I'm not going to be talking about this in any depth today, but for some context, it's worth diving in and actually talking about this. So across the top here, we've got our 5 stages of business. And on the left here, we've got our employees, sales, number of small business US, our team size, and our biggest hurdle. So the thing we're looking at here is our biggest hurdle. And you can see our stage 4 and stage 5 businesses. We've got people and systems and leadership and culture. That's what we're going to be talking about today: how to build a system that can scale and make sure you have the leadership skills you need to be the leader at that level, and also to drive your team below you up to build their leadership skills to run the business so you aren't running a constant daycare. So real quick context before we dive into this, these growth hurdles, as we talk about them, you may get to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in your cleaning business, but if you do not fix these growth hurdles, they will plague your business. And if you don't keep them in track, they will eventually maybe come back to haunt you. So as we look at our stage one business, I'd like to call this stage 1A and stage 1B. The first one at time A, or stage 1A, is you got your cleaning business, but you have a full-time job. So your biggest hurdle is time. Eventually you end up quitting that full-time job, going out on your own as a full-time cleaning company. Biggest issue there is leads. You can't physically get enough leads from just referrals, people you know, maybe church groups, whatever that is. We need to get enough leads to get the light on in the door. And we call these the ones and threes of revenue. So as you go from our stage 1 to our stage 2, we're now shooting somewhere between 100 and 300,000 annual revenue. Your biggest issue here is sales. So you need to go out, and what we find in most cleaning companies is we go out and get a lot of work, and then we do a lot of work, and then we start to slow up on work, and then we go out and do a lot of sales. And it's this teeter-totter effect. So we need a consistent time where someone in the business, usually the business owner at this time, is either part-time or full-time doing sales. But in behind this, there has to be a non-emotional sales goal that we're shooting and tracking and being held accountable each and every month. And while we're doing the sales, that's all we're doing. We're not fighting fires. We're going in and building the sales. Behind the sales system, there really needs to be, in my opinion, a set way of production rate-based estimating based on square footage, number of bedrooms, people, pets, dirt code, as Debbie Sardone dives into, and several others. But the idea here is that we have a production rate-based estimating system that can be quoted either in person or ideally over the phone based on the square footage of the home and some of the measurables that are in there based on weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly cleaning. So once we have that sales piece broken out, we are diving into our stage number 3. This is our steady operations, and marketing and service are our 2 bottlenecks. And the first thing is we're going to dive into marketing. So we need a consistent way to market to go in and continue to grow leads in a consistent manner. One of my mentors, Jonathan Toshnik, went out and talked about this analogy of the vending machine with all your perfect cleaning clients in it. So if you knew it cost $150 to acquire a client, your client acquisition cost, your CAC, for every $150 you stuck into this vending machine, your ideal client would kick out the bottom consistently. So that's our marketing piece. In addition to that, we have a service piece. So what happens now is the business owner goes in and hires people they don't know. We got 4 to 10 cleaners out in the field. You obviously cannot be on each one of those jobs with those cleaners. So we need simple, predictable services in a way to go out and train and replicate that simple service with consistency throughout the crews. So that's about where we're up to at this point in the talk. But now we're going to our stage 4 and stage 5 business. Now we have broke this $1 million mark, and our biggest bottleneck or hurdle is going to be people and systems. So if you remember in stage 3, we've gone out and hired people that we don't know. Now those people that we don't know are going out and hiring people they don't know. So we need to get really clear on our people and systems. In addition, our systems for onboarding, billing, all the different things that happen in the office and in the field for consistently need to be dialed in and be able to be a rinse and repeat system as we got 2 layers removed from the business owner. As we go into our stage 5, traditionally that's 3 to 10 million in most small businesses. I'm going to challenge kind of what's on the screen here in saying that the stage 5 growth hurdles and bottlenecks of leadership and culture actually start to rear their head nowadays with the new culture right at $1 million or just before. So we've got people and systems and leadership and culture we're going to be talking about today. So on the highest level, leadership is talking at you, the business owner, hopefully watching this, is do you have the leadership skills from $500,000 to $750,000 to $1 million that you need at that level? Well, I can tell you in my first journey, I definitely did not have those leadership. I had to constantly reinvent myself and go out and get education just like we're doing here at the summit. But once we've got that leadership skills and we've gone in and become the leader we need to be at that next level, there is a cultural piece. But one of the things when I had the honor to go out and talk at Keep, which is an automations company with actually one of our clients that we're doing automations with at the time, Matt Ricketts. Matt and I had the ability to actually talk at the company meeting for keep in front of 300 to 400 people in person and virtually. But one of the things that struck me very right out of the gate is their CEO, Clayton Mask, talked about that he was the leader that he needed to be at the point where they're at, but he did not have the skill set or ability to be the leader he needed to be at the next growth level they were going to. But he reassured the company that he was going out through mentorship, through coaching, and other avenues that he would go and evolve to be the leader he needed to be to when they got to that next level of sales. That's the same thing that we're talking about here, folks. We need to go out and continue to upgrade our leadership skills within the business. And that's not enough, because if we're bringing people from externally or in the field up through the chain, there's a good chance they do not have the leadership skills that they need to go out and run the business and replicate you as a business owner as many basically owners throughout the company and the organization. So we're going to tackle the leadership problem and issue, continue to evolve, and then culture. What we need to do here in the culture piece, especially starting at that $1 million mark and beyond, is we need to get really clear on that BHAG, that mission. Where are we going in 3 years? And align all of our goals to that. That's going to go into some quarterly annual planning. In addition, we're going to get really clear on our core values. We're going to go out and hire, train, and eventually fire. I'd like to say coach up and coach out to the core values. And we're going to dive into this cultural piece. That's what's ahead of us today in today's journey of our 7-figure business and beyond: people and systems, leadership, and culture. So really what we need is change in the business and change in you yourself as the business owner. So as we're looking at it here on the left, you might say, hey, Mike, I don't really have enough time, or what should I be working on if I can actually get the time to kind of work on the business and not in it, as Michael Gerber would talk about. So here on the left-hand side of the screen here, there's this Everest mission analogy. This is the elite methodology that we teach here at Simple Growth. But 20% of your time, about 8 hours a week, should be handled on the strategic processes. And that's going to be your annual, quarterly priorities and your SMART goals. This is what's going to drive the business forward. The other 80% of times are short-term excellence. How do we execute those annual goals, the quarterly goals, monthly goals, right down to weekly goals, and organize the work and build the team around it? And what we're going to talk about is how do we take the strategy and break the operational on the daily basis and meet somewhere in the middle to go out and drive and scale your cleaning business. As we talked about growing and scaling your leadership abilities, there's really 3 things, and 3 only things, that you should be actually doing as the business owner or leader of the business once we get to this point. First one is going out and setting up the vision and a clear path for execution, and you are going to be the champion of the business. You should be repeating the vision, the mission, the core values to the point where it's like a broken record and your team is literally getting sick of you hearing it, but you're setting the vision. Where are we going in the strategy? The second part is we're building the team. We're going to hire, lead, and fire to this vision, and we're going to believe and develop in people. And we're going to organize the work in a way through the process I'm going to show you to go out and scale the business that can run without you. And finally, we're going to deliver results through financial KPIs or key performance indicators. We're going to create a culture of performance and establish meeting rhythms for accountability. Can you imagine if you went to a professional sporting event and there was no scoreboard? Those A-type athletes would not be performing to their greatest ability because they didn't know if they were winning or losing, and there wasn't a clear expectation of what winning looks like. I can tell you in the early days of my first company at Callahan's, if we asked the team, hey, did you win today when they got back to the office? A lot of them would say, yeah, well, we got all the jobs done and we got back before dark. Well, obviously that is not winning. That may be part of it, but we need to have clearly defined daily goals that tie into the operational goals for a daily, weekly, quarterly, and annual goal that drives this 3-year mission. That's the clarity we're talking about. So us as the business owners, we're going to set the vision, we're going to build the team, we're going to deliver results, and hopefully within the middle of that, we're going to lead with care as the business owner. So I don't know about the rest of you guys here. I'm going to read a few of these off, but throughout my entrepreneur journey, even this weekend alone, a lot of these things are on top of frame of mind. And I'm thinking about these things going, I must be the only one on this entrepreneur island that's thinking these. So I'm not sure which role to hire first. Poor hiring decisions, hard time seeing how you will hit your mission and where you're going in the next 2 to 3 years, a lack of clarity, who owns what. Well, I thought they were doing it, or I don't know who should actually be delegated this issue of a complaint or an upsell or whatever else that is in your cleaning business. You're overwhelmed by the sheer size of the growth needed to actually hit your goals. How are you actually even going to get there? One of my favorites, not sure if the roles you have will be needed in the future. In the true transparency of it, they may not be. So we're going to talk about today, how do you do that? One of my favorites lately is, wish you could start from scratch or just blow up the whole entire cleaning company and organize the team differently? Are the roles I have today even applicable to the size I'm at? And probably the worst one right now is reactive hiring that is killing your bottom line profit margins. I remember in one of my first lawn care businesses, we would go out one year and we actually, on a 2-person crew or team, we'd actually hired a third person because it was less painful. If we had one no call, no show, we could send 2 people out. Otherwise, myself and the manager would have had to be the second person on the team. So we were reactively hiring to kill the pain point just to avoid the pain point. Obviously not the right way, but these are some things that were in my head for sure. And if they're in your head, put a hand up here in the chat. We'll take a look at it. We got a couple coming in. We're going to talk about how to avoid these issues in the business here. So before we do that, I want to talk about the owner-operator versus entrepreneur mindset. So as we're looking left, we got the owner-operator. We are going to evolve into the entrepreneur mindset today, or the 7-figure entrepreneur through this talk. But focus in the owner-operator, the early days, stability and operational efficiency. The next part, as we evolve to the 7-figure business owner, we're going to be looking at growth and innovation. Our risk tolerance in the early days, we're risk adverse. We're cautious about change. As we're shifting today, we're comfortable with calculated risk. Our look at growth in the beginning is incremental, steady, often local or regional. In this next shift that we're talking about is aggressive, rapid, and I would say not maybe national, but possibly. A few folks on here that I recognize names are looking at national growth, but we're looking at how do we go out and continue to evolve the market and not just be localized in one single area potentially. The management style in the early days, hands-on, evolved in the day-to-day. Our new shift is delegates, focus on the vision and the strategy. What got us here is not going to get us there. We become the leaders to set the vision and the strategy, build that team and results. Time horizon in the early days is long-term stability and sustainability. We just need to survive. As we evolve our mindset here is long-term impact and eventually exit or scaling. What can we do to actually create a business that's built to sell, even if we're not looking to sell it? And finally, innovation. In the early days, we're focusing on maintaining and improving existing systems. This new next shift, we're constantly seeking new opportunities and disruptive ideas, folks. If you're not looking at AI and all the different things through autonomous things that are coming out, the AI on the softwares and a whole bunch of other things that are currently coming out, right down to even using AI agents inside your cleaning business and using spatial AI to automatically quote some of your properties over the website or the phone. These are the things that we need to be thinking about as this new 7-figure entrepreneur and all the things we're talking about today. So really I want to dive in as the big picture. I want to create the organizational chart of the future. And once we create this organizational chart to create this process that we're starting to get into, we're going to live into this organization chart and identify your next hire. So if you remember, going out and just hiring to get rid of a pain point is not a great idea. It's going to kill your bottom line profit margin. How do we know where we're at and where we're going and drive the team into this process? This is started the thing. So what we're going to do is create this organizational chart of the future. We're going to live into the chart and identify our next key hires. So what we want to do here is begin with the end in mind. And why, you might ask, Mike, why this future org chart? Well, the main thing is we're going to stop hiring when there's a fire to put out. We're going to grow your team intentionally and not just throw things against the wall and hope they stick. And we're going to design for mission completion. So where are we going in 3 years and how are we going to get there with a roadmap? Because if we don't plan it out and put milestones along the way, we will never get to where we're going. And we're going to consider roles, not people, when we're organizing the work. So a lot of times in the early days, at least myself, we would start organizing the work to be done around the skill set of an individual in the office or in the field. We're going to actually go out now and non-emotionally build these roles and start to hire, train, and eventually fire to the things that are needed around this role. It's one thing to declare a mission, but it's another one to build the organization that makes that mission possible, folks. That's what we're getting into today. Annual planning, in my opinion, is incomplete without the organizational structure and a hiring plan. So we're going to build the structure, we're going to create a hiring plan and create clarity around the roles and let each one of these individuals know if they're winning or losing and how, just like the janitor at NASA, how their daily operations, what they do contributes to the overall goal and mission of this company. So this is your annual opportunity to refresh your future org chart if you already have one and make any adjustments to it. We're going to give you some tweaks and some best practice around there. Want to do this at least once a year. We're going to review your mission strategy. where are we at and where are we going in the next 3 years? Is the strategy you have set up right now still the right strategy with maybe some things going on in the economy or your market? How well does your people investment match your mission strategy? So are you investing in the right estimators, the right office CSRs? What is the pieces that we need to have? Do we have the right trainers? Does that match your mission, where you're going? And we're going to identify the key hires for the year in what order you'll hire them. So we're not now going to be randomly hiring just to put out a fire or to evolve a pain point. We're going to have a clear, non-emotional roadmap to hire the exact people you need when you need them with financial benchmarks behind them. So when can I afford to hire? We're going to look at getting a better handle on your numbers. We want to analyze cash flow, develop staffing models, refine your planning as you develop more accurate resource models. And we want to use revenue per employee as a governor or a benchmark to when we go in. So each employee in the field should be generating X amount of revenue per head count, per month, per day, per year, based on residential cleaning, Airbnb, commercial, porter services. Depending on where you're at, those are going to be needed. And if needed, we're going to look at using part-time or contracted folks or even fractional resources until we hire a full-time person. So the idea is we're going in and we're building a budget. A great example of this is maybe a bookkeeper or a CFO. And this CFO handling the finances and that, if that's not something you do in your leadership role, you obviously need to be looking at it and managing it. But if we have a bookkeeper or a CFO, we may not be able to afford them where we're at in the organization, but we may bring in a fractional subcontracted resource part-time until the full hire is needed. This process we're going to be going through here in the next few minutes is actually going to go in and dive in clarity around that for you. So as we take a look at it here, we've got our CEO, and how do we create predictable teams around that? So as we go in, we've got our marketing leader, sales leader. You kind of can see in the middle here, we've got our residential team, our commercial clean, our 1099 team, and our porter services. Well, how do we create structure around the field staff? That's usually where all the attention is given to. So what I'm going to do is build out a really rough draft of this organizational chart cascading down from the CEO. So we've added our marketing team, we've added our sales team, we've added our service leader or production manager for those 4 types of teams that may be in there. And we've added our office manager. So as we're going down from the left, we would have our marketing. So underneath that, we have content, strategy, distribution, social media, website, SEO, landing pages, events, sponsorship, and probably a whole lot more. Obviously, I can't fit it all on the slide, but these are all the pieces that need to be happening in that marketing division led by the actual marketing leader. In the sales, we may have the in-office estimator. If you're doing any in-field estimating for commercial or other areas, maybe you're doing walkthroughs for residential still. That is another skill set or potentially a different person in the organizational chart. The in-office estimator probably is doubling as a CSR, customer service rep. And then as we go as that service leader who is managing in the field crews, we would go in and put down, in this example, fictitiously, we've got 5 residential cleaning teams. I've got 1 commercial team. I've got 3 1099 solo cleaners. And then our porter service for maybe our large casinos that we're doing in the area. We have 3 teams of that as well that are doing porter service. So the idea is we're going to get clearly defined what types of teams do we have, and then how many of those teams do we have, whether they're solos or the number of people in there. And then who is ultimately leading that. And then under our office manager, we've got finance, payroll, and accounting. Like I said, there's a couple more things that could be on here, but I want to lay out a high-level overview of what this looks like. So now we've gone in and actually clearly defined the roles, what's responsible, then we're plugging the people into the roles, not building the roles around the people. But the biggest question I always get is people like, Mike, how do we create accountability and ownership of the performance that drives to our annual goals? Once again, how do you know if you won? Well, if I can clearly and non-emotionally tell you this is what's expected and this is your performance and here's clean, fair compensation for this, we are never, ever, ever in misagreement. We know what's expected and how it's tracked. So as we're diving in here, this is the main idea. We're going to go in and build this out. And we're going to go in and put the people's names on here so we have complete ownership. So as you're looking at it from the last slide, how do we create accountability and ownership and performance that drives annual goals? Enter the big 3. And these are the 3 most important things that we are going to track on this non-emotional scoreboard. So imagine if you could only pull 3 levers for each position of the company, what are the most three important levers that can be pulled to actually drive to the quarterly and annual goals. That's what we dive into. So each and every position, starting from the CEO all the way down to the person in the field cleaning, is going to have this big three. You may ask, why do we need this big three? Well, team members see how their work matters, how it contributes to the goals. Team members feel like they've accomplished something each and every day. They know where they stand. They're not going home wondering like, well, did I do a good job today or didn't I? Business owners now see what's really happening in business. And when the business needs are not being met, you get pulled back into the daily operations less. So the idea is now that the operational goals are being hit, the business owner can focus on those three things they need to be doing: setting the vision, building the team, and delivering financial results. So we want to build the team you need, and this enables coaching conversations and progression planning for team members. They're not only just stuck on the ground level of cleaning, they can start to see the progression in the company and a way to evolve. And when we have this big three, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This is how we're at. This lends to weekly and 90-day reviews and annual reviews for all your team. Everybody knows where they're at each given moment. So what is the big three? It's a current snapshot of the three most important responsibilities of every given role. The three key results are activities for each of the roles for the quarter. So I'm going to recommend we don't change this big three ongoing. It needs to be in place at least for 3 months at a time. In a cleaning business, I'm going to suggest, at least for the field staff, the production staff, it's going to probably remain consistent for the whole entire year. But if there's some issues that pop up, and you'll see on the next couple screens, some areas we may want to focus and shift those. But the key takeaway here is the big three will not change, at least for each. It won't change before the end of each quarter. The big three answers these three questions here: what's expected, how it's going to be measured, and how it's aligned to the company goals. So a couple examples here: a sales role, whether it's in the office or doing walkthroughs through the properties. 80% of the score is the number of new customers. The measurement is the average weekly goal of, say, 10 new clients a week. Number of dials, upsells, and follow-ups. Measurement, average per day, is 70. So we need to have 70 conversations between the phone and in person. And then number three is talk time. Average daily talk time in person or over the phone is at least 5 hours. Now you can see 80, 15, and 5%. That's how they're ranked. Well, obviously, if we're hitting our sales goal, that's the most important thing. Talk time is 3 hours, not 5. Well, it's going to be weighted less, but ideally and statistically, these are the numbers that need to happen in order to hit these goals. But it's clearly defined of what the expectation is, how it's going to be measured, and how we can have a conversation around this. So really, the next question I always get is, are these big three strategic or are they operational? So if you remember back to the Everest analogy on the left, we had our strategy, and then we had the 80% of the time is operational excellence. Well, the operational part of big three is it lands on the operational side, and it is role focused. So each role has their own big three, but that aligns to the strategic company focus of our annual goals, quarterly goals, and right down to our SMART goals. And this big three now can take it from a daily basis and go all the way out to the yearly basis and make sure we're tracking exactly what should happen to make sure the goals happen. So another example of a customer service rep or a CSR inside of your cleaning business office is we've got 55%, 35, and 10%. Phone calls generating 55% of the weight. Measurement, answer calls within 3 rings and return messages within 24 hours. Number 2, email management, 35% of the weight. Measurement, all emails answered or delegated within 24 hours. And finally, number 3, 10% office maintenance. Measurement, office cleaned and maintained weekly. Now, obviously, you want the garbage taken out in the office neat and tidy. But if we have an absolute rush, it's seasonal parts of the season, especially before the holidays, those phones better be answered. Email management better be happening before we take the trash out at the end of the day of the office. And that is going to be the ranking order of those things there. So where do we start in this whole process? So we're going to start with the business owner's big three. We're always going to cascade from the top down all the way down to that janitor at NASA on the ground floor or your cleaning techs in the field. So we're going to start with the business owner's big three, and those are going to equal the business goals. Should point towards that mission goal that Jim Collins' BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. We're going to work through that org chart and what is needed from those reporting to the business owner in order for the business owner to meet the objectives of the business. So we're going to go out and create some reporting cadence. I'm going to show you some examples of that. And then we're going to use this cascading objectives in order to make sure the needs of the business are being met from the top down. So as we're looking at it, This is my frame out of a very rough org chart with big three for a cleaning company. So the CEO, once again, we're to be tackling revenue, profit, and team retention. Those are our big three. There's going to be non-emotional metrics behind that. We're going to talk about results-based or activity-based here as well, because there's certain ways we can track this. Office manager, outstanding invoices, accounts receivable and payables, customer retention, and communication and timely payroll. We've got our customer service rep, phone calls, answered and returned, emails responded, and office maintenance. Our operations manager managing the cleaning teams in the field. They're going to be looking at profit, customer retention, and process improvement to go out and train and improve the processes. Our crew leader, if it's a 2-person cleaning crew, is going to be tackling profit, times completed budget versus actual, quality standard, and pre and post trip duties. Our technician would be profit and quality standards. You may notice that the profit and quality standards, the big three of the technician and the crew leader, are the same. And then the third may be making sure all the gates all of the, in cleaning would be all the doors are locked and anything else, the trash is taken outside or to the dumpster if that's part of the thing. But if you're running a solo cleaning operation, obviously the crew leader would probably be your example, profit, quality, and pre and post trip duties. But each one of these would be defined on your business goals and where you're going at in your 3-year mission. So who determines the big three? The employee alone, the leader alone, or together? I'm going to recommend that it is done together. Now, where I kind of draw the line of that is outside of the in the field production. Those are usually dictated. We may bring in a review of them to get some ownership of the cleaners, but we probably do not want to go out and have them dictate that because there's going to be a disconnect. But we are going to get really clear of how and what they do meets or exceeds standards and how it contributes to the overall goal. Your leadership team, I'd highly recommend including them in. One of our sales guys here at Simple Growth actually missed some of his sales goals. And through this big three process, you'll see he took the ownership of it, came back to the leadership team, and came with solutions. It wasn't leaning back on my shoulders as the business owner, but he took ownership and actually came in with solutions and some objectives, how to actually go out and fix and solve the sales gap. And believe it or not, the ideas did work. He took ownership and implemented them. So you're there to support and give them the resources, not babysit and take care of all the fires. Ways to measure this big three methodology is either results-based or activity-based. In the beginning, you may do some activity-based, but ideally, in my opinion, you want to get to results-based as quick as possible because it's going to drive better results in most cases, and it's not emotional in a more strict and strategic way, per se. But your results-based is based on the number of sales, NPS, customer retention, some non-emotional numbers there. Activity-based is talk time, number of blog posts, just activities. We're just, how many activities do we do? And those activities hopefully reach the overall goal. The results base is, did we hit 100% or did we not hit 100%? Budget versus actual efficiency. But remember, whatever you do, you want a clearly defined scoring criteria that is non-emotional for the folks. We also want to make sure there's some room to grow. So we're not going to go out and try to swing for the fences and hit a grand slam out the gate. We also need to make sure that everybody believes they're attainable and experience in the role matters. So if you have a veteran cleaning tech that's been with you for 8 or 9 years, their productivity and things that they're doing are probably not going to be equated to someone who just started last week or just got out of your training last week. So we want to make sure there's time and experience in the roles here matters based on their individual big three. And then we may want to start with activities and then drive into results. But we need to work together so both parties believe these are attainable. And we're not mixing culture into this. It's literally, this is what's expected. Here's fair compensation. Did we hit it? No one on your team now at this point should ever be surprised if we're having a conversation to let them go, because there's a daily and a weekly dialogue that is created and eventually will change the entire culture of your cleaning business, because we will basically be creating many little business owners within your business that own and drive the results for you. Once we get this set together, we do need to set some room for calibration. So the bar is set at meets expectation, and it's good to help people know ahead of time what doesn't meet and what exceeds. So is 80% meets expectation or is 100%? We need to clearly define what meets expectation, budget versus actual, what clearly hits a quality score. What else? And then probably whatever the third one is for your crews or your team cleaning techs to do that. But I highly suggest the first two you'd start out with is budget versus actual, a quality score, and maybe an attendance if that's an issue in your company. But are we complete agreement here? On the left, we've decided that the expectation is a dog. Well, yes, on the left, they are both dogs, but they're clearly two different things. We need to get more clear here on the right. Yes, they're both Labrador retrievers, or they are golden retrievers, whatever that is, but we need to be clear that a dog is a dog, or the expectation is the expectation. On the left here, this is where we get ourselves in trouble. So we want to make sure before we implement this that whatever we're doing, that we're both in agreement, the team member and the manager and the owner, that we're in agreement what's expected, how it's measured, and what's winning look like, what's losing look like, and everything in between. Two things to make the big three effective. We need a shared understanding of what is expected, how it will be measured, how it aligns to those company goals, and it's an ongoing dialogue about performance. And this performance will be measured publicly right on a dry erase board or a TV, in my opinion, in the office. And it will go into your weekly and quarterly reviews and annual reviews as well. So everybody knows where they stand at any day. No one's going home at the end of the night and thinking, did I actually do my job? Did I contribute to the overall goal of the company? Everybody will be crystal clear. And like I said at the beginning of the talk, the biggest thing for a business owner, those three words, is I am clear. Well, I like to also think that the biggest thing for anybody, the team member, is I am also clear, because if they're clear of what's expected, if they're hitting it, if they're doing their job, you're going to have overall better performance, retention, and better customer satisfaction. So a great example here of our big three example for our field staff is we've got budget versus actual, quality score of 9 or higher, and 100% clock in and clock out based on the CRM you're using for mobile. That also seems to be the biggest issue for trying to do some job costing around profitability. But each day has a clear expectation of what happened, is a budget percentage, a weekly target, and did they hit it? And the status is a green and yellow area here on the screen here. So we've got our weekly target, what the actual was, the status, green, yellow, or red, who owns the metric, and the metric source here being ZenMaid for that information. And this is what is being displayed now on a daily, weekly basis in the actual office for public accountability. We even took the extent of making a printed out copy of this and putting it in their paycheck stubs with their paycheck when they picked it up every Friday. And even if they had direct deposit, everybody would get an envelope with that in there and a copy of the direct deposit slips. So it's an ongoing dialogue about performance. Self-reporting, we recommend weekly, especially for the leadership team in your field, your production manager, or the office will report it out and display it publicly. It's ongoing leadership conversations, including performance expectations and feedback on the results for formal performance reviews each quarter, and a conversation on the weekly basis for our weekly one-on-ones. The metric is the judge. There is no emotion. This is what's expected. This is what happened. And it is going to create ownership and accountability, where now the shifting of the business has come off the business owner's shoulders and gone to the employee. And we've got a team that can grow and run without the business owner trying to go out and having to babysit this process. So as Jim Rohn said, a good objective of leadership is to help those who are doing poorly do well, and help those who are doing well do even better. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to suggest we go in, get really clear where we're at, where we're going in the next 3 years, get clear on our strategic objectives and how they drive into operational efficiencies. And the next step is building the organizational chart that you have with each clearly defined role, what's expected, assigning people's names that, build the roles and not around the people, but build the role and put the people into it. Once we have those roles, how do we track the accountability and ownership? And that's going to be our big three, the three most important levers that we are going to have in the business. We're going to take those big three and track them from a leadership level up. We're probably going to have group accountability and forming those together. But you as the business owner are ultimately going to make the final decision. And now what is measured happens from the field staff right up, just like the janitor at NASA. They are going to know what they do on a daily basis, how it contributes to the mission. And finally, you as the business owner are going to be focusing on the three most important things you can do. You're going to set the vision, build a team, and deliver results, and hopefully not run out of money in the process. Mike Callahan, ZenMaid Summit 2025. Thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate you.